Welcome to Angling Buzz presented by Fleet Farm. I'm Troy Linder. On today's show, we're talking about weed fishing. Now, if you look at any lake, river, or reservoir, there's specific habitat that fish relate to. We're talking about sunken trees, rock piles, and also weeds. And all fish during the summertime, they like to be in the weeds. Here in the North Country, our lakes can get very clear and weeds can grow to depths of 20 feet or more. And currently we're in the second week of July and fish are either in the weeds or around it. And our featured guest today is multi-species specialist Jeremy Smith from Angling Edge. Jeremy, have you been out on the water recently? And also more importantly, what can you share in the way of tips to help people catch more fish in the weeds?
Yeah, Troy, I have been out a fair bit and the weed growth this year is fantastic. We had that early ice out coupled with that really hot streak in early June, and the weed growth is just fantastic on many of our northern natural lakes. Now, catching fish in weeds is, it can seem daunting because weed beds can of course be huge. They can be ranging from 2 feet all the way out to maybe 17, 18 feet. So where do you look? And a couple key features that you want to look for, whether you're fishing for largemouth bass, crappies, bluegills, walleyes, are irregularities in the weed line. So I'm talking about where there might be a little cup in the weeds, where there might be a point, and then additionally, where you find bottom composition changes within those weed beds. So you might see on your depth finder where you get a stronger return. That's a change from maybe sand or mud into gravel or rock, and those are really key areas. So weed beds might seem huge and really tough to fish through the whole thing, but those little areas are what tend to hold 90% of the fish in a really big area.
Do you feel that all fish relate to weeds in the same manner?
Well, that's a good question. Yes and no. Most game fish like being around weeds at some point during the season. Now, for example, largemouth bass, you often find them in really dense weed beds. It could be lily pads in the shallows, or as the summer progresses, thick stands of coontail or milfoil. Those really dense areas often hold numbers of largemouth bass. Walleye, by contrast, you often find in more sparse weed beds. It might be sandgrass that's growing off the bottom in an 18 to 20 foot break line, or they might be scattered about in cabbage, the nice big green plants where their stalks are spread kind of far and few between. Panfish are kind of in between. You can find them associated with, really dense pockets of milfoil or coontail, but often they're, relating to those edges. But really all fish do seem to like that vertical standing cover. And of course, pike and muskies love being around weed beds as well. Now, one thing I'll say is that regardless of what you're fishing for, always look for areas that are a little bit different. When you start to examine weed beds, you will see little subtleties in them. It might turn from all coontail to where you start to see a little bit more cabbage or something like that. And those transitions where different species of weeds meet, and again, where bottom compositions change, or there's a turn or a point in a weed bed, are all great areas to find just about any kind of fish that swims.
Now let's talk about some different presentation strategies. What do you suggest this time of year for presentations for bass, panfish, walleye, and muskie?
Oh wow, Troy, that is another tricky question, and I'll do my best to make some generalizations about that. Of course, it depends on the mood of the fish. This time of year, we have a lot of cover that's made its way to the surface, so throwing topwaters and pockets can be a great way to catch bass and even muskies. Now, by contrast, panfish tend to relate a lot more to edges at this time of year, and then for walleyes, they're often out in areas where the weeds don't quite come to the surface, but on that roll into the basin where you've got some weeds that are deeper. So catching fish in this situation really depends on their mood. Making contact with cover can be a key element for catching just about any of them. If I'm fishing muskies in heavy cover, heavy weeds, I like throwing a dive and rise bait, bumping into the stocks or bumping a spinner bait. If they're really active, sure, you can burn a bucktail over the top or a topwater. Same thing with largemouth bass. Frogging in heavy cover, yeah, if they're active, they'll bite it, but this is the time of year when you might have to dive right into the thick stuff to get those tough bites. And with walleyes, pulling a bullet sinker with a spinner rig over those deeper weeds, that's a great way to make contact, and try to get that bullet sinker to bump into the weeds. Let the fish know you're there, get as close to the cover as you can. And with panfish, it's kind of the same thing with bass. You want to pitch into pockets, count that bait down just a few feet often, figure out where they're at in the water column when the conditions are tough. They'll be in the weeds when conditions get to be just right. The panfish often pull just outside of those weed lines. So it's kind of a generalization, but that's a pretty good approach.
Well, thanks a lot, Jeremy, for your time and sharing some insight on how to catch fish out of the weeds. And stay with us after the short commercial break. We have our Timely Topics feature as Angling Buzz continues.
Northland tackles in the premium hardbait game with the Rumble Crankbait Series. Available in 15 custom artisan colors. All Northland Rumble Series baits are handmade with a unique heat compression molding process that ensures unmatched durability and baits that run true on the troll and cast farther than the competition. You'll discover that walleyes and other species find their unique role in actions simply irresistible. You're going to want to up your game with these new cranks. Fishing is definitely better with balsa.
Looking for the perfect fishing vacation? Leech Lake, Minnesota. There's over 112,000 acres of water to explore with fantastic walleye, bass, pike, panfish, and trophy muskies. The fishing opportunities are endless. Leech Lake has it all with over 30 resorts, lodges, campgrounds, and hotels line its pristine shores. Plan your trip. It's Minnesota's original up-north vacation destination.
In 2020, Minnesota watercraft inspectors found that 97% of boaters were doing their best to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. In short, drain plugs were removed, no standing water was inside the boat, and no zebra mussels or plants were found on the boat or trailer. Thanks for following these simple habit-forming rules. Clean aquatic plants and animals from boats, trailers, and equipment. Drain all water from motors and live wells. Remove all boat plugs and dispose of unused bait in the trash.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm, proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. Up next is our Timely Topics feature. We're heading out in the lake with James Linder to catch some bass out of the weeds.
Well, I can tell you one thing, we really got the right conditions for crankbait fishing today. Today I'm fishing with Dan Quinn, Pro Staff Manager for Rapala Baits. So we're gonna be really focusing on talking about catching largemouth bass, fishing weeds with crankbaits. Oh, there he is. Boy, he just plowed it. Spots like this, a lot of times you get on the right weed edge and boy, you'll catch a lot of them in short order.
Summertime fishing in the Midwest or on grass, you get really set in your ways with jigs and Texas rigs, Tokyo rigs, soft plastics, and Nico rigs and worms, and sometimes you're fishing along not getting bit, and then you get a bite on your retrieve into the boat, you know, when you're reeling up. You're like, huh, and then it happens again, and if it happens twice, you gotta take those clues, start throwing crankbaits. And a lot of times when I see that happening, it's when you'll occasionally see a bird flies by and the bluegills erupt. You're like, oh, the bait's really high, so the fish, they take notice of that. You got to adapt and go with the flow and switch to a crankbait and start catching them. It's cool when it happens and you kind of put all that together and put the pieces of the puzzle together and it works. Right on the edge. Nice one too. Just tick the top of some grass. Bam.
It's what you call chowing down.
Wow.
You know, one really important aspect of crankbait fishing is, believe it or not, boat control. We've been really fishing the perimeter of a deep weed edge. It's like 10 to 12 foot of water and casting these DT10s up along, as well as along the paralleling the edge of the weeds. As you go to get into deeper water, when you get to say 14-foot baits, 16-foot baits, 20-foot baits, generally the more refined cast, you're not moving around really quickly, you're set up in a fixed position. The spot lock feature, like on this Minn Kota, is a fabulous tool for that, because a lot of times what you do is identify some hard bottom strip of rocks, a ledge, a shell bed, and you have coordinates on there, and then you're making really long casts, driving the bait down there and getting that bait to walk for as long a period of time as possible with these baits. That's a real key. With shallower lip baits like wiggle warts and, you know, BX brats, when you're running 6 foot and shallower, you don't have that issue because you're just, you know, using the bait as a tremendous bait to comb a lot of water really, really quickly. But it's just more talking specifically about your style of boat control to present the bait is really key. Look at that, that's a fatty there, look at that.
One of the key differences about fishing a crankbait in the grass is the whole general idea around a crankbait that changes in direction are what triggers the bite. So if you're fishing a DT6 or a square bill around the bank, as that bait's careening around banging off docks and rocks and wood, it changes direction when it hits something, and that's what triggers the bite, makes the fish bite the lure. So as you're fishing around grass, just coming along and it ticks the weeds, maybe it gets stuck in the weeds, you want to be able to reel it, dig it down there, and then snap. And as soon as it bolts out of there, it pauses for a second before you start reeling again. That's what triggers a lot of those bites. So keeping in mind that you always want the bait to be doing something different. Stop and go, you know, speed it up, slow it down, do different things to make the bait change direction, because you're not hitting hard cover like you would with a lot of other presentations and a lot of other crankbait situations.
Oh boy, did you see that one? No, I stopped it.
Oh, look at that one just...
Wow, there you go, holy mackerel.
He grabbed this out of the water. He grabbed it out of the air. Yeah. That's a first for me.
Is that a cranking, sort of freewheeling? Well,
holy smokes.
Well, that goes to show you the effectiveness of crankbaits.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to catch bass out of the weeds. One of my favorite is top water frogging. Well, stay with us after this short commercial break. We got our buzz bite reports from around the region as Angling Buzz continues.
Simple, fast, and easy. This automatic launching and loading system on boat-to-trailer.com makes unloading and loading your boat a breeze on both roller or bunk trailer configurations. This system is a simple one-bolt install. No more hanging over the boat, no more cranking in the boat, and no more wet feet. Speed your boat ramp time by visiting boat-to-trailer.com.
You can't choose the weather, but you can choose to dress for it. Introducing Blackfish Performance Rain Gear. Utilizing patented eVent technology, this advanced membrane allows body heat and vapors to escape while offering 100% waterproof protection with an exceptional combination of waterproof and breathability ratings. Blackfish Rain Gear keeps you dry all day. Whether on the tournament trail or chasing weekend walleyes, choose Blackfish because you can't choose the weather.
You don't know their names yet, but you will.
Customer first, that's their mission at Dondelinger Auto. It's not just about the sale, it's about giving you peace of mind for as long as you own that vehicle. Dondelinger is home to the lifetime powertrain warranty for new and pre-owned vehicles, plus 10 years of roadside assistance. They have an incredible variety of the most popular vehicles and offer pickup and drop-off for service. Stop in to experience the Dondelinger difference today.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. It's time for this week's Buzz Bite Reports. To kick it off, we're going to join Jeff Evans in northern Wisconsin.
The walleye bite has been fantastic. That's an eater-sized fish we're going to let go. But water temperatures have been super consistent in the low to mid 70s around the Hayward area. We've had some really cool nights, so it's kind of keeping that water from getting too hot. Weather's been good. We're getting these walleyes a couple of different ways. I've started trolling main lake basins and kind of trolling in that 15 to 20 foot range. You're seeing a lot of suspended bait. So we're trolling crawler harnesses with bait rigs, Astro Bright blades on planer boards. That's been effective. We're getting most of our bigger fish, 25 to 30 inchers on that method, but we're also getting a lot of fish out on rock piles in 20 to 25 feet. Same as last week, slip bobbers and leeches has been the best. Smallmouth bass have mostly dispersed out to the deeper offshore areas now, 15 to 20 feet, points, rocky reefs, rocky humps, main lake stuff has all been pretty good. Drop shotting has been really effective, Ned Rigs has been really effective, and Nico Rigs has been really effective. Be safe, have fun, and catch a bunch of fish.
Thanks, Jeff. Now let's head to Leech Lake with the Leisure Outdoor Boys.
Hi everyone, Chuck Hassey with Leisure Outdoor Adventures giving you your Leech Lake fishing report for the second week in July. We have water temperatures in the high 70s. We've had about a 4-week-long mayfly hatch. We have crayfish molting, and a lot of those young of the year perch minnows are just starting to get big enough now to where the fish are starting to feed on them as well, so the fish are full. We're using a lot of reactionary baits to try to get those fish to trigger to bite, maybe when they're not necessarily in the mood to do that. Spinners, jig and wraps, crankbaits. Anything orange, purple or orange, anything that resembles a crayfish, a perch, glow yellow perch on the jig and wraps has been working well, and also orange again on our spinner blades. So if you're in the Leech Lake area, don't be afraid to fish fast and aggressive. That seems to be triggering the bites right now.
Now let's head north to Lake Vermillion with Billy Rosner.
As we head into the dog days of summer, the best advice I can say is, get up early, fish those first 3-4 hours in the morning, and again in the evening. You get an overcast day, you can fish all day long. You get an overcast day with a light rain or something, that changes the game up. Think transitions for your walleyes, and those can be, a weed line, or they can be from rock to sand, rock to mud, those sorts of things. And the depths are going to kind of vary on that stuff all over the place. And as far as baits go, you've heard me talk about live bait rigs, the jig and wraps, hair jigs, rip and wraps, that sort of stuff. But another tactic that it's been around forever, it's called jig dragging. Use like a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce jig, depending on your depth. Get into some of those big sand flats. You can let out like 100 feet of line, and this kind of trolls 0.5, 0.9, kick your speed up, maybe give your rod a rip once in a while, get that little poof off that sand with that jig, and that's another good tactic to catch some walleyes, so don't forget the jig dragging.
Thanks, Billy. Now let's head over to the Red River with Brad Durick.
Here up on the Red River, it's great news. Spawn is over. The catfish are out feeding. They're still a little bit skinny, but they're on the munch. They're getting ready to go. They're trying to get back up to summer mode, and they're active. So right now, lack of current still on the Red River. Deeper holes, look for any visible current you can find. That will help a ton. Just want to remind you that we have a major drought conditions going on right now, and some sections are dangerous for boating, some sections are better than other. Either way, the spawn is over and the big fish are eating. So that's good news. As far as baits, just use whatever you can. Suckers, goldeyes, there's not a lot of frogs around due to the drought. But great things happening up here on the Red River.
Thanks, Brad. Now don't go anywhere. After the short break, we still have cool products and technique of the week as Angling Buzz continues.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Marine Pro Fuel Treatment helps marine engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam! Marine Pro, new from the makers of Seafoam. Marine Pro is a complete marine fuel system treatment. Just pour it in. Fast starts and smooth running power have never been this easy. Available now at Fleet Farm.
Like many of you, I've had back issues.
From the pounding waves of Lake Erie. to over 30 years of competitive angling.
And a lifetime on the water, but not anymore.
Smooth Moves changed the game.
It's a must-have for me and my clients.
It's like my boat is floating on air.
They're easy to install.
Fully adjustable.
It makes a day on the water a whole lot more comfortable.
Smooth your ride with Smooth Moves.
Lake Vermillion. Explore. Relax. Reconnect.
Minnesota's most beautiful lake.
Oh.
Get hooked on our trophy walleye,
That's a beauty.
bass,
My favorite fish.
musky fish,
That's a beauty there.
Things to do? You'll never get bored.
Rooms with a view? We got 'em.
Lake Vermillion. 4 seasons of fun.
And now it's time for our cool products brought to you by Fleet Farm. We're talking about bass fishing today. Well, we definitely got to talk about some spinner baits. This is the new Terminator Pro Series spinner bait. I have used these a lot. They're extremely effective. There's actually a lot of different color combinations for the skirts, the actual jig head, and the different blades. They have a nice keeper there for your soft plastic that you put on there. Very durable, great vibration. The new Terminator Pro Series spinner bait. Also from Terminator, the heavy duty swim jig. You can see why it's called heavy duty by that thick hook on there. And the swim jig, it's meant to be cast and then just kind of reeled back. Goes through wood, brush, weed, a very strong hook. You know, throw this on some big line, but this is a great new jig from Terminator, the heavy duty swim jig. Another jig option, this one is from All Terrain Tackle. This is the Grassmaster weed jig. This time of year, weed growth is pretty heavy, and for largemouth bass, these are an absolute go-to. You put a little crawler on there, and you're on your way to catching fish. This is the All Terrain Tackle Grassmaster weed jig. And next, a couple different jig options from Northland Tackle. The first one is the Jungle Jig. Again, this is flipping. This is a weedless flipping jig. They have a nice weed guard on there, very strong hook on there. You know, this is meant to be fished on pretty heavy line. They have some rattles in there built into the jig as well. A lot of action with the skirt, put on a piece of soft plastic on there. Again, fish this around milfoil. You can fish this in pads, cabbage beds, and of course, like I said before, brush and timber. These jigs work great. The Jungle Jig from Northland Tackle. The next one's a smaller option from Northland Tackle. This is the Weed Weasel. You can see these are lighter jigs meant to be used with lighter line, and they have a little keeper on there, so you can actually use live bait on this. You can put a crawler, a leech, a minnow on this. They get a nice little weed guard there. And you can also put soft plastic, so you could put a plastic worm on this, a small tube, and just a great smaller profile weedless jig from Northland Tackle, the Weed Weasel. And we are talking bass fishing, so we definitely got to mention the Ned Rig. This thing has really come on strong in recent years. And this is the Finesse Trd from Z-Man. These have the Elastec, and they're really durable. They stretch out, so you can catch a lot of fish on these. And bass, smallmouth and largemouth cannot resist it. And next to my left here, this is the Minn Kota Ipilot micro remote. And this integrates with your Bluetooth system and your Minn Kota trolling motor. You have the real easy functions here, just push button. You can spot lock with the anchor. You can increase the speed, decrease the speed. You can turn to the right, turn to the left on here. You have the rabbit feature, and you have the north feature, which orientates your trolling motor due north. This is a nice little lanyard clip on here. A great device, especially if you're fishing off the back of the boat. This is great, the Minn Kota Ipilot micro remote. Well, everybody likes a good fish fry, and Fleet Farm has you covered with their back 40 breading mixes. They have a lot of different options, different flavors available. This is the plain panko crusted. This is really good. I do like this, like panko crusted crappies. That is delicious. They also have, a standard beer batter and a couple spicy ones here, sriracha, Cajun, and they have other flavors available. Stop by your local Fleet Farm store, also online, and check out the back 40 breading mixes. And new this year from St. Croix, they have their Victory Series bass rods. There's a lot of different combinations that are available in power and action, both spinning and in bait casting. This specific one here, this is called the Marshall. This is a 7-foot 3-inch medium heavy power fast action rod, and this would be for jig fishing. You could also throw spinner baits on this, heavy cranking. And the Victory series, again from St. Croix, is made for bass fishing, and they have a lot of different options, again, in both spinning and bait casting. You know, Fleet Farm offers a lot of different complete combinations for both rod and reel. This is one option. This is the Daiwa Crossfire LT. This is a 7-foot 2-piece rod, and it is matched with the Crossfire LT reel. Spool this up with like 8-pound monofilament, and you can pretty much catch just about anything that swims, and it's a great introductory reel and rod combination. This is the Crossfire LT from Daiwa. And be sure to shop online anytime at fleetfarm.com, and also visit your local Fleet Farm store. And right now it's time for our technique of the week.
So weed walleyes, it's one of those things where there's a multitude of different tactics and approaches you can take to catching walleyes in or around the weeds. One is look for points, indents, pockets. Even if you're fishing a weed flat and there's a depression in there, a lot of times those walleyes will use that depression. You know, and a lot of times you'll just find walleyes that are just in weeds random, and that's where a simple 1/8 quarter-ounce sinker pinched on a spinner rig going 0.8 to 1.1, that'll catch those. That'll bring those fish out of the weeds. Another one is snap jig and just ripping the weeds off your jig. So there's a ton of different things you can do in weeds, and they're all different. Like, you can't really put weed fishing walleyes in one box. Coontail, for instance, matted coontail. I'm gonna be looking for points, weeds, pockets, things like that. Cabbage, where it's sparse cabbage stalks. I might be pitching jigs right in there and just slowly working a jig right through there to course those walleyes out of there. And then you go into, you know, heavily milfoiled lakes where you get depressions, you know, and that's where a lot of guys will talk about drop shotting walleye. That's about the only time I'm going to drop shot walleye is in those weed holes. And I'm talking holes, they might be 5 feet wide, they might be 20 feet wide, they might be 20 yards wide. But that's where you're able to keep that bait in the strike zone or in the fishy zone more with that bait.
Oh yeah, nice one. Yeah.
So you kind of, when you're targeting walleyes in the weeds, the most common is probably cabbage line, cabbage points, cabbage pockets, that type of thing in northern Minnesota. But other than that, you really have to fish it to find those walleyes.
Yeah, this time of year you can get some great walleye action up in the weeds. It's one of my favorite ways to catch them when they are kind of relatively shallow, snap jig and swim baits and jig and wraps. Well, next week's show, we're going up north to Canada for some Canadian fishing adventures. And as always, we want to remind you to help stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. Anytime you're leaving any body of water, remember, clean, drain, dry. And be sure to enter our sweepstakes online. You can win a fantastic weekend up on Lake Vermillion, staying at one of the great resorts up there. 2 days of guided fishing, a $500 tackle pack from Rapala, as well as a $500 gift card for Fleet Farm. Well, thank you for joining us this week. I'm Troy Linder, and we'll see you next time.